Alright, welcome to the City of Stickmon. Today we've got a special thing lined up for you. Today we're going to be going over how to plan a city in Minecraft. Now these are just a few tips and tricks on how to successfully plan out a city. These are more or less just my own suggestions that I think should be used in order for you to create a successful, healthy city. Now this topic has been requested by me, or for me, requested for me? To me, this has been requested to me by quite a few people actually, in pretty much most of my life playing Minecraft. So I've been building cities for about 5 years, so was that 2012? For about 5 years now. And oh, happy New Year to you, by the way. It is New Year's Day as I am recording this. You watching this is probably, you know, in the past New Year's, but yes, happy New Year's to you. So anyway, sorry, back to our topic. So yeah, I've been building cities for about 5 years, so I know a thing or two on how to plan them, and this is what is this now, the 5th generation of Stickmon. So you know, through lots of trial and error, I've definitely figured out the best things to do with the city, and the last city was planned out probably maybe a bit better. No, this one's definitely going to be planned out a bit better, and we'll get into all those reasons why later. But first, I've got this all written down because I actually had a few ideas in my mind, so just so I didn't forget them, I do have it written down. So to start off, when you're building a city, because you know, such a huge thing to build, you need to know where to start, and the best place to start is the spawn. So basically, you're going to need to choose a location for spawn, which we'll get into next, because that's also a big part. And it's either you can either do spawn first, or you can do the location first. It kind of goes hand in hand. You kind of need to know both of what you're going to do. So I actually have 5 ideas for good spawn creation, and I'll share those with you now. They're in my order. They're in order from my favourite to least favourite, or not even that, just like my most favourite at the top. So number 1, I think just the greatest idea for a spawn is a hospital. The reason why is because once you spawn in the game, you know, it's like you're being born into the world. That's where like everything starts, right, at the hospital. And if you haven't got your spawn set, maybe it's something about or something, if you haven't done that, then every time you die, you respawn at the hospital. So it's kind of like getting revived and you're at the hospital. That was my favourite idea, and we were going to do that in this city world, except it was overruled by kind of a weak committee that we have, but I'll explain that to you a bit later. Number 2 is an airport, and that's just a really fantastic idea too, I think. Just because you can do so much with an airport, you can make it so big, and just imagine spawning on an airplane and you walk through the terminals and like out the airport and everything. Just like the first thing to see it when you spawn into a world being an airport would just be such an amazing thing. So that is another idea you could use. Then cargo port is number 3 on the list, and that's what we've used actually. And it doesn't have to be a cargo port, it could be a ferry. Really, it's just like boats, anything to do with sea sort of could be your spawn. But we did a cargo port because it's kind of like, you know, maybe immigrated illegally or something over to the country, and you know, you're at the cargo port because you have to get registered and everything. For some reason we just thought that was a better idea, and the reason why we didn't do a hospital is it actually goes into location, planning the location, which we'll get into just after this. So next is a train station. You can do a train station spawn. That would actually go good if you're doing more of a kind of a western city, or like this city. And a lot of people don't know actually. They think this is a very modern city, like up to date. It's actually not. This Stickmon city has always been an older city. This takes place around, like the year is the same, but it's kind of off of 1930s to the 1950s. That's what we've really been trying to base Stickmon off of all this time. But yeah, so basically a train station. So if you have like an old city, then it's like, you know, I think it'd be cool, just like a new beginnings there in the city. Or if it was Western, definitely you want a train station, I think. So now location. Actually, I had 6 ideas for you, but technically it was 5 and just like an add-on, because you can do this as your spawn, or you can do this on top of your spawn. So the other thing I had was kind of a server holding area, so like a server lobby, kind of like a purgatory. So before you get in the game, maybe you're just like in this wee server lobby. If you've ever played PC Minecraft, you know, there's all these buttons you can press, there's rules on how to play the game. The very first stick-mode server I'd ever created, that was back in 2012, 5 years ago. Well, from me recording this video, obviously. The spawn was way too far from the actual city, so I built this huge bedrock complex, and then there was a minecart system. This is actually back when minecart rails could go on glowstone. Yeah. So anyway, there was this whole bedrock complex, and you had to take a train from there all the way to the city. It actually took you to Blue Wall City, and then you cross the border into Stick 1. Anyway, so that's kind of like a purgatory, you know, really, just everything is getting settled in, and you have server information there. It's just kind of like a server lobby. And then once you get out of there, you can also do kind of the actual city type of spawn. And the reason why I had to mention spawn is because lots of cities, they don't... I've been into too many cities where you spawn just randomly in the road or on top of a roof or something. Some people don't even plan out their spawn, so that's a very important part if you're looking to get a good city. So next is the location. Now, location, very, very important, and this goes hand in hand with your spawn and how you're going to plan it out. Now, if this were a Western type of city, right, you would do maybe the train station. Oh no, sorry. So it also depends on what type of city it is. So if you're doing just a build city where people can come on and look at everything, then maybe you'd want your spawn to be in the Metropolitan. However, if you are doing a roleplay economy city and it's much like this one, then you don't really want your spawn in the Metropolitan, and here's the reason why. Now, I've been in servers where you have to kind of be known to play or something. It's like, it's not really open to everybody. This server is open to everybody, and it's always an online game, so anyone can just join. And the problem with that is, when new people join the game, either they're, you know, noobish, or they just don't take the whole concept of what you've done with your world seriously, or they're just looking to get into mischief, basically. They're going to destroy things. They're going to either break glass or destroy plants, and you don't want that. So if you spawn them in the Metropolitan, they're just going to break a bunch of stuff, right? And it's going to be noticeable. So what we did, and I'll even give the last server as an example, what we did was you spawned in the ghetto, and it was hardcore ghetto. Spawn Island even. All of South Stick 1 was a ghetto, but Spawn Island on its own, that was the worst of it all. That was the slums, man. So basically, let me explain this to you. Don't know how many times I've said basically in this video. I was about to say it again. The reason why you want to put spawn in a ghetto if it's kind of a city that anyone's just allowed to come into is because if people, you know, they're not serious or whatever, and they start breaking things or getting into mischief, it's not a big deal because you're not really going to notice it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's in the ghetto, so like if everything's already fallen to pieces and somebody does more damage, who's going to notice, right? So that's what we did for the last city. Now the problem with it was, it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. You can put a lot of detail into making something look bad, and you know, it makes it look worse, which is kind of a good thing, but to other people, they don't see that extra detail, they just see like a bunch of mixed blocks or whatever. So in the last server, right, we had roads falling apart, there were potholes everywhere, buildings were just crashed to pieces. People did not like that. They wanted to repair it, they wanted to make it look good. And that kind of goes against, you know, the whole reasoning of doing it in the ghetto, so people don't destroy all the good things. So with this server, we kind of had to switch things up a bit. So instead of spawning in a ghetto, you spawn in Smokeport, which is just a dark, dingy, dirty area where it's all factories and stuff, but it's not the ghetto. So there's still lots of detail in the buildings, everything looks good, it just, you can tell it's definitely kind of a lower area. And South Stickmon here is no longer the ghetto, but instead of everything being broken to pieces, this is just an old part of the map. This is just supposed to be really old, so you know, the buildings still look alright, they look decent, don't they? And you know, if people were to destroy them, I mean the roads, I will put some cracked stone in here and like some potholes going on, so it does look old. And if people did destroy something like some plants or some glass, you wouldn't quite notice because, you know, it kind of still blends in with the whole thing. So location. If you're building a city and just a city, that's great. But most cities have districts, and with this world included, this world has, this is actually basically a state that we've created, and it's got cities, and within those cities there are districts. So let me give you an example. Stickmon is the state, and the city of Stickmon includes Smokeport. I've actually got a map here to show you, and this will probably help me explain it better. So down here, you know, that is the cargo port where everybody spawns, and I might have people spawn inside of that, I don't even know. But anyway, so that's cargo port. This whole lower area is Smokeport, alright? Lower income area. And then you move up towards South Stickmon. Now this is all one city still. Smokeport is a part of the Stickmon city. Now this is South Stickmon. Smokeport is just a district. This is South Stickmon, which is also a district, right? And then in this little area, actually, this is going to be Chinatown, which is a small district inside Stickmon. And then you move up here to the metropolitan North Stickmon, and that kind of ends it for the city of Stickmon. And then you move outwards to the rural area, and then out here we have Gollywood, down here we have District 11, and I want to explain these to you a bit more too. So, like I said before too, people just spawning in, random people, you never know if they're up to good, and if all their, you know, if they're just, their main thing is to get into mischief, you know, I don't know I'm saying this. If they're just trying to get into mischief, you don't want them to destroy your stuff. So what we did basically is, because we're putting more effort into South Stickmon, because this is a nicer area, right? We don't want people to come here and just destroy. So notice how everything is spaced out all over the place. So somebody has to make their way all the way to South Stickmon, and I don't even think you can do that with just like no hunger. So basically you kind of have to establish yourself first in Smokeport, and then ready yourself for the journey. And the longer you keep them in your world, kind of the more dedicated and the more they have to lose. So the more dedicated they become and the more they have to lose. So the more they have to lose, the less they're going to get into problems, right? So that's what you have there. And then moving up to here, so people are more established, right? You can now buy real estate, there's entertainment up here, stores to go shopping, but you know, still not the best area to live in, because you know, still newer people can get here. It's not impossible for them to get here, but the metropolitan is so far up. By the time you get to the metropolitan, right, by the time you've established yourself this far into the server, that you've reached the metropolitan, we would expect that you are more of a responsible player, you're more established, you have more to lose, meaning you don't want to get into trouble because you don't want to lose what you have created so far. So then the metropolitan is all skyscrapers, and this is where we start putting in more effort in our buildings, and it looks a lot nicer. So anyone can live kind of in South Stickmon. That's kind of like the middle area. And you have to work really, really hard to make it big in the metropolitan. But then there's Gollywood, and people really only dream about going to Gollywood. You have to be super rich to live in Gollywood, super rich to buy things in Gollywood. Gollywood is just such an expensive place. By the time you have made it to this section of the map, you really have too much to lose. Like, why would you do anything to ruin it? I mean, it's gonna happen. But just notice how we're filtering out all the baddies and trying to keep the goodies. That's basically what's happening. And then, so that's basically how you can set up your districts from, you know, hide the good stuff and show all the, you know, alright stuff. And I actually have more of an example for that. So basically this is a homeless shelter right here. So people in here are homeless and still not fully established, so we don't want them getting into too much mischief. So notice how there's no stores right in the general area where they can steal stuff from. There's no restaurants where they just steal food from. We put, you know, kind of like cheap apartments and just kind of pointless buildings where they can't get much out of. They have to really establish themselves. And there will be grocery stores and stuff, just not right there in the view of the homeless people. So that it will be in the back roads and stuff hidden. So that's what I meant by hide the good stuff and show the alright stuff. Let's go back to building districts. So we do have districts. So that's filtering out all the baddies all the way up to the top. But then you can put in side districts. So, you know, we've got Chinatown, Metropolitan, we might have Little Italy, we will have a suburban area, lots of neighbourhoods scattered around the place. This is where the airport is going to be. So notice how it's in the rural area. And I want to get into airports with you as well. That kind of ties into Spawn. Yeah, and then this is the whole farm area with plantations and whatnot. That's the rural area. And then District 11, which is kind of its own area on itself too, separated from everything else. Because District 11 is where we have the government. And that's all government buildings. So we're also going to talk about commercial areas, residential areas, and buildings, not to mix, you know, just to have everything look good with each other. So this is districts. Moving on to, actually let's talk about the airport quickly. So I have been in worlds where the airport is just right smack inside the city. I don't like when people do that. I think airports should be far away from the homes, because you know, all the noise and stuff. So we have our airport far away. You have to drive out past the suburbs. It's really on the outskirts of the city, which is where I think airports should be. Now, I live in a city in real life where the airport is not too far from the city, but it is like lots of kind of flat land, not a lot around it, but it's still kind of in the city. But then Los Angeles, for example, you know, they've got, or from Grand Theft Auto 5 even, they've got their airport smack in the city, which is not a bad thing, but you know, it's best to have it separated in its own little area. And if you did do an airport, you could still, I guess, potentially filter people through, but you know, you kind of go from an airport into the good part of the city, kind of metropolitan. It's kind of, everything's kind of connected to the airport. But this map will have 3 airports. So yeah. Now moving on to building styles and whatnot. So this is South Stickmont. This is an older area, but notice how these are all low-rise buildings or just 2-story buildings and whatnot. That's like, you wouldn't just mix a skyscraper smack in here, because it wouldn't look good, right? You wouldn't have a Art Deco building, and if you don't know what Art Deco is, that is modern style, and there is a difference. Lots of people actually have mistaked modern style building for a different style. I'm actually going to go into all the styles of building later. But yeah, so just notice how like these buildings are kind of old, maybe New Yorkish people would call them. So just notice how like everything, it kind of blends together, right? So the only thing that doesn't really blend together is the jazz house. Even though it's brick and everything, it does looks a bit up to date out of the time period that we're in. But just notice how we've kind of stuck with the same color contrast of everything, and it's kind of basically the same build scheme. So try to keep everything together like that. And hang on a minute, got people to, yeah, so hide this. Okay, so commercial from residential area. So commercial areas, I've also been into city worlds where I've noticed too much that people have mixed a neighbourhood of houses, or just like a row of houses, right in with a bunch of buildings, just out of nowhere. But you don't do that. You have to separate your areas. So here we've got a wee neighbourhood. This is going to be all houses, and then and other parts is going to be all commercial buildings. So residence is housing areas, and commercial is places like apartments or businesses and office buildings, stuff like that. So that's the difference between commercial and residential. That's what I had to get into with you. That's almost it. We're almost done here. Okay, here's a huge problem. I mean, it might not even be a problem. This might be all preference. Personally, I hate looking at this. Too many. And I mean, I've been in too many servers where they're just building the city and they build a whole grid of just roads with just empty plots in between them, and that's where they start building their buildings. I would not do that. I would definitely start with buildings first, because you never know how big your buildings are going to be, and you want to build the roads around your buildings. And there's actually an example of that. So I built this building here. This was probably the first building, actually the homeless shelter was, and this building, and then you know, I have these row of buildings, and then I built this one, right? And this is as wide as it was going to be, and I was about to build the road right here without finishing the other buildings, and I decided not to. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to leave that. Good thing I left that, because I was going to build the road here when actually the road has to be expanded here, because this building back here, notice how it takes up so much space than that small blue building, and it's because all these buildings have been pushed back so far and these buildings weren't. It kind of was a disproportionate order for this one. So that's why you want to build your buildings before the roads, put the roads in after. I believe that is it. That's all I have on paper. So if there is anything that you think I should add to the video, anything I missed, anything else that you want to know, I'll just add it. I'll make a new video of it, and I'll just clip it into this one. And just a quick note too, like I said near the beginning, people ask me if I can build a city with them. I get lots of messages, people saying, hey Gollywog, you got a few city worlds, can you build a city with me? I want to start a city, will you build it with me? And I'll always say no. I never ever say yes. And there's a reason why I say no. I say no because people just starting cities, like, cities are a lot of work. You have to really dedicate yourself to them. I mean, I've dedicated myself to cities for 5 years, and I would be on the second ever city actually if everything had went to plan. Let me just tell you this is why I don't build in other people's cities worlds, is because they get neglected, abandoned, or griefed. If you let too many people just build on them, they're going to get griefed. If you don't like it anymore, or you just feel like starting fresh, you abandon it and it's neglected, and that's just all the work down the drain, right? So that's why I don't do that. I like to stick with one world and one world only and just expand on it. Now there's a reason why this is the 5th generation, why we've moved up in 5 generations. So let me just tell you a quick story. So the very first Stitchy Stick one, it was just I just wanted to build a city, and that's what I did. And it turns out it was a big hit. Lots of people liked it, lots of people played on it, and they just really enjoyed themselves. And one day I looked at it and I thought to myself, all these buildings are pretty much cubes, you know, everything's built out of the same block. It didn't have a lot of detail, and I knew I could do a lot better. And because people liked it so much, I wanted to do something for them. I wanted to give them a better experience, and I knew I could. So that's when I started the second stick one, and I wouldn't have gone past that right? So I started the second stick one, and you know, everything was good, planned it out. There was a spawn park in that one. You spawned right in the middle of the Metropolitan, didn't plan it out too well. The government buildings were mixed in with the Metropolitan buildings. It wasn't a planned city, I just wanted to put things, make them more detailed and bigger. Unfortunately, that world corrupted itself, otherwise we would still be on it. So then I made another world, and actually after it corrupted itself, I was really upset about that. So I just made a random world, I built kind of like a rough city in it, just so people could be entertained. I didn't really care much for it. And then again, it was a hit though, like people loved just being in the city. And that really inspired me to create the 4th generation of Stickmon, which was the one that we were just last on. And that was made for Xbox One, on a 360 map though. And I did that for them because I thought, you know, they like it so much, I'm going to put effort into it, and I'm going to care this time. And then again, something happened with the file, so now we're on this one. So I wouldn't be bouncing around city from city if I could help it, which I can't. But this is the very first city started on Xbox One, so hopefully there's no problems. Yeah, that's basically it. Really quickly, let me just jump down to one thing I mentioned earlier about the government buildings, not mixing buildings together, right? So this is all lower kind of area, no tall skyscrapers, just everything looks good together. And also, I have my government area here. So this is where the president will stay. We'll have a military base. All government things will be here. You'll have, Library of Congress. Everything's going here. And there's a reason why I'm having all the government things in one area too. And that's because, this world is open for people to go wherever they want, but that world is going to be very closed off to only a certain amount of people. And it's easier to maintain if all those buildings are together. So if we have somebody that we don't want there, it's easier to keep an eye on them or on that area to make sure we're keeping out on the bad people. Because, just very important stuff's happening there, and to keep that just separated from everything is just a good idea. So this island, the sand island, we're going to get rid of all that. We're going to shave these bits off, and it's going to be its island on its own. And then down here too, we're going to build a wee power plant. So this is part of the city of Stickmon. Just, not much is going to go here. And yeah, so that's basically it. So you see the districts, you see the cities. So we have Stickmon, which is a huge city here. And then we have the rural area, kind of like the country area of Stickmon city. And then we have Gollywood, which will be a city in its own. And then kind of, not really Washington, but just District 11, the government area, which will also be a city on its own. And then we're going to have kind of I hate to say hick town, I don't really know what else to call it, but we're going to have, kind of like in Grand Theft Auto 5 actually, where Sandy Shores, where Trevor lived in Wayne County. We're going to have that area like that, which will probably be technically a part of Stickmon City, I'm not sure. But yeah, so hope you're not confused, hope you understand, and you'll better plan out your city now. This is how to plan a city with Gollywog. And like I said earlier, before I mentioned, if you need more tips on something, if there's something I haven't explained right, or maybe you just don't understand something, just comment it down below please, and I will clarify that, and I'll add an attachment to this video, so it'll be a bit longer than it is now if I do that, but that's alright. Anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and a video that you might be able to expect, which I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, but you might be able to expect a planning, actually no, I just told you all my plans for Stickmon, so we're not going to do that anymore, but you can expect sometime in the future, you can expect a Minecraft building styles, where I will go over different types of architectural styles and how you can apply them to Minecraft, and the confusion, because people confuse certain styles for what it's not, and a bit of history behind it. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and if you did find this video helpful, please rate it. I'd actually really appreciate that. I never really do ask for videos to be rated. That's because normally I don't care, but this is kind of like an important information video, so I do want to know how well this does. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Alright, goodbye and Happy New Year.